He could be a freak on the court and on the shit. You know what I'm saying?
You're embarrassing yourself.
Woo!
Woo! Welcome to the Wisconsin Sports Fans 11th episode podcast. This is Kevin. I am joined by a full house tonight. We have Brandon, B-Money. We have Chris. We have Brian. We even have Matt after a long hiatus. We also have the younger half of Chuck and Winkler from 105 FM 7. I can speak. FM 107 The Fan. Bart Winkler, welcome.
As long as you find it on your radio, I don't care what you call it. So thank you. Thanks for having me.
All you need is the new WSSP app, right, Bart?
The smartphone app, everybody. Yes.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good evening, everybody.
Well, welcome, guys. We're kind of in the doldrums of sports. We have the Olympics going on right now, but a lot of local stuff is yet to happen. We've got the Bucks kind of getting into their second part of the season here, going toward playoffs. We've got the Brewers just kind of easing into spring training now, getting into games starting tomorrow. I wanted to ask a quick question about the Bucks. As we get into these last 25 games, have they met your expectations?
No.
You want to elaborate on that?
You wouldn't mind explaining a little bit about your position.
So I guess here, and maybe this is unfair, but as someone who, I know, Brandon, you're more of the diehard Bucks fan.
Yes,
and I'm certainly
unfair coming from you, Frank.
I certainly follow the Bucks. I'm certainly a fan. But the reason I say no, first off, I mean, if you fire your head coach, I'm guessing you're not meeting expectations. But the real reason I don't feel like they've met expectations is coming into this year as someone who hasn't been, again, someone who's more of a casual fan, I guess. I follow the Bucks, I follow the rosters, so maybe I'm not really casual, but I certainly am not someone who bleeds Bucks in the way that I do the Brewers or the way that I do the Packers. And coming into this year, the excitement in Milwaukee was palpable. You remember those first couple of games, the Bradley Center was rocking. There was just this atmosphere. There was this expectation that the Bucks were going to take a step forward. No one expected them to be, a 1 or a 2 seed or anything like that. But to me, it seemed like, for the last couple of years, especially last year, they've been kind of in that 6 or maybe even sort of at times in the 5 seed area. And it felt like this year the expectation was they'd take a step forward. They'd be in position to host a playoff series. They'd be in that 3 or 4 spot. They'd be that tier right below the super teams. They wouldn't, again, remember expectations at the beginning of the season. I know Cleveland's had their issues, but to me, it felt like they were supposed to be in that next tier down. Like, again, I know they're the 1 right now, but like Toronto had been the last few years. Like they'd be that 3 or that 4 seed, that next tier down right below someone that was seriously contending for a conference title. You'd expect them to get into the second round of the playoffs. And, they've been up and down. They've been hotter of late, but they're still languishing in that 6 seed right now. And I know the season still has 25 games left. So how can you really say they failed to meet expectations till it's all over? They certainly could still get there, but it just feels like they've been kind of, Giannis has taken a step forward, but the rest of the roster really hasn't. I know Parker was kind of getting healthy there, but still, it just feels like, kind of, all right, we're in the same place we've been for the last 3 years. And they don't feel to me like they're ready to beat the top 3 or 4 seed, a 3 or 4 seed team. To me, it feels like they're going to be in a competitive first round playoff again, and the playoffs have their own issues, but they're going to be in a competitive first round of the playoffs and probably lose in, maybe the maximum number of games, but it just doesn't feel like they're ready for that next step yet.
Anyone else want to jump in? I
think he's done.
I kind of want to hear something from Kevin, something from Bart on this, and then I kind of want to give my synopsis of what I'm thinking after we hear the you other two guys.
Is it going to be 20 minutes, Brandon?
I promise I'll keep it to a minimum.
I'll chime in. It's hard to say what expectations are. I know we wanted them to. They took Toronto to the end of the series last year in the playoffs, and it's hard to say that they would actually do that again this year. They've not done well against Toronto at all this year. I would say if the season ended with them not moving any further in the playoffs, that's going to be I would definitely be against that as far as my expectations go. I think I expect more of them. But then again, I mean, it's Jason Kidd's gone. I guess they haven't met my expectations, is what I'd say.
I think if they had met expectations at this point, then Jason Kidd would probably still be the coach, right? I mean, look at all they've had to do this year. They had to trade for a point guard. They had to fire their coach. So they weren't meeting expectations. That was clear. They're 7 games over 500 here at the sort of break. I think that they'll get in the playoffs. So that's meet expectations part 1. Meet expectations part 2 is be a top 4 seed. I think they can do that. You've got Raptors, Celtics, Cavs, of course. And then with John Wall being hurt, they should get the 4. The Pacers, though, have been better. The Sixers could go on a run. The Heat. So I think what people wanted, if you polled Bucks Nation before the season, realistically, top 4 playoff series win. And I think that's what everybody wanted. And then, like, the Bucks were talking about, 50 wins and Eastern Conference Finals, which would be great. I think that would be an exceeding the expectations for a lot of people. I think if they finish in the top 4, that would be great, obviously. But if they're 5 or 6, I don't think that's going to matter too much. I think it all comes down to how they do in that first round series. And if they come out and get hot and then lose it again, or if they come out and don't look like they're ready, or they've got to win that first round series. You hear it all the time that anytime I start to get excited about the Bucks, I start to dream of the path that they can make a finals run, which it's there, they can, but everyone will come at you right away and say, "Well, win a playoff series first." So that's got to be what they do. I think the success, not success of the season absolutely hinges on if they win a first round playoff series or not. So meeting expectations, maybe a little below just because you want them to be a little better, but it will all come down to that first round series, I think, for me.
Bucks and 6 reference?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking if they do make the playoffs, they should bring Brandon Jennings back to the team
Oh my
for
God,
just
yeah.
for the Bucks and 6 culture thing. That
They
you talked about.
should bring him back for tomorrow night's game, man.
Dude, he lit up the league for 31 points, 8 assists. He's gotta find
The shot was there. I just in the first quarter I watched. He looked good, man. I know he got a little tired, but bring him up now. Let's just do it. What are we waiting for? Just do it.
Yeah,
I wonder how good Giannis would look in the development league.
Probably a
man.
Greek mythology type of reference coming up then. Yeah, I guess before I get into have they met expectations for me, I guess for me, the Brandon Jennings thing, yeah, bring him up. Why not? See what he's got. Give him some limited minutes. See if he can get acclimated. See if he's got chemistry with the guys. Otherwise, really, why sign him? He's not really here to play in the G League, D League, whatever they call it now. I think he's trying to make his way back in a familiar spot. And hell, if he can produce like he did the other night with 31 points, 8 assists, I don't even care if that translates to half of that. Now, will he be that consistent? I don't know. I don't know enough about Brandon Jennings in the last few years to say so, which probably leads me to believe no. But I would not hate seeing him back in a new rebranded Bucks jersey, playing alongside some of the talent we have on the roster. In terms of have they met expectations, I think I'm on board with what you guys were saying. You fire your head coach, and you're probably not in the best of situations. However, I think Joe Prunty has done a really good job. I like listening to his answers. I like when he's asked questions. I like his accountability. There's a lot of things to like about Prunty right now. Right now he's going through the the cookie part of the schedule, the soft part of the schedule. So it was the right time to make such a move for the organization. But yeah, I don't think they're met those expectations yet, but that it leads me almost into the Prunty thing. We've gone from a bottom tier defense in the NBA, not just the Eastern Conference, to second best in the NBA. And yes, I get we're not playing the top level talent, but that's something. I think that Prunty has come in and he's simplified things. There's been a lot of articles about his scheme and how we're not trying to do so much zone defense where we're trying to use our athleticism and our length to, intercept those swing passes for fast breaks. We're not, trying to run to that open shooter. And that was a big problem for the Bucks, is that 3-point shooting was just our 3-point shooting defense was just abysmal. They would always have, the opposing team would always have a shooter on the perimeter just ready to bury a shot. And with Prunty, you're seeing that a little less. I don't have the pure statistics on it, but from everything I've seen, they've done a lot better of a job closing out and making it tougher on opponents. So while they haven't met expectations in the first half of the season, I feel the players are a little bit energized. And anytime you have a change like that, that can happen. But I think it more leads to what could we see and what is the potential of this team under a Joe Prunty team. So I think I am more looking forward than looking behind. I think we talk about, the first half of the season, you look at what were really the two big stories. It was Kidd and what can we do about our center position after Moose left. And we can talk a little bit about trades and trade deadlines, Zeller or whatever. But I think the big thing is Kidd is out of there. A lot of people on the roster didn't like him. And moving forward, it gives the Bucks a new energy. And you see that. Bart, you watch some of the games. To you, do you get a feel that they have a different feel to them? Do they seem looser? Are they having more fun? I look at it and I say, yeah, what do you think?
I think, and you're even hearing from guys, Chris Middleton specifically,
Right.
the Jason Kidd thing just wasn't working. So I know they tried to hold off on that as long as possible, and there were rumblings that he could have got fired sooner. It's so obvious to me that he was a terrible coach. And you listen to some of these other national guys that cover the league too, and I don't know what we were doing around here to sort of protect Jason Kidd. I think that was a memo that my station got sent that I wasn't included on, because he was bad and the team wasn't performing under him. So yeah, there is a little bit of a boost in energy. Now you can attribute some of that to Jabari Parker coming back too.
Yes.
There are, though, some more injuries with Brogdon, Dellavedova. So once they get back to full strength, they'll have the ability for Giannis and Middleton to not have to play 35 minutes a night. I think there was definitely a change of culture needed, and I'm glad to see that it happened. The schedule thing, it's there. I mean, it's been an easier part of the schedule for Prunty, but I just feel like now we're almost going out of our way to bring that up all the time. And the Bucks have looked better, and they like the Bulls. They beat the Bulls. Okay, well, it's the Bulls. Yeah, well, that Bulls beat Jason Kidd's Bucks twice this season. So
Right.
yes, the schedule wasn't that great, but they were getting wins under Prunty that they would not have got under Kidd. I mean, and the problem for me is when I am doing our morning show to try to convey that, I can't come the next day and argue with Chuck or argue with people that, well, here's the solid fact of why they would have lost this game with Jason Kidd and they did under Joe Prunty. But you just know. I mean, you just know. Right. They would have lost a bunch of these games. So you do give credit to the energy, and you do give credit to Joe Prunty, who, depending on how far they go, could be the coach here for a while. I think he's got to do a lot, but he's definitely got that option, or definitely got that chance.
Go ahead, Flynn.
It'll be really interesting to see how this pans out because, obviously I stated my view that they've not met expectations to this point, and a lot of that is based on, the tenure up to Kidd. But they've gone 7-3 over the last 10. Now, granted, soft schedule, what have you. Everybody around them has gone 7-3. The 3, the 4, the 5 seed, all of those teams are 7-3 in the last 10. Philadelphia's 6-4 in the last 10, and Toronto's 9-1 in the last 10. It seems like everybody's playing the soft part of their schedule right now. But what I will say is between the 7 seed and the 3 seed, everybody's within 3.5 games of each other. So while I don't feel like they've met expectations to this point, there is plenty of room to move upward and move upward quickly because it's a really crowded field right now in the East, in that middle part of the seeding.
I think I also read from here on out that schedule is going to get harder, so Prunty is going to prove himself over these next 25 games.
Yeah, I think some things around him are going to be key as well. Boston seems to be struggling a little bit. Cleveland, you don't know what's going to happen with the new guys they brought in. I mean, those are some big changes that Cleveland tried to make on the fly, and we'll see how that translates. Now, Braun seemed real energized with the new guys, Nance Jr. and the guys that they brought in. But it'll be interesting to see, the teams around them too. And can the Raptors continue the torrid pace that they're on? Yeah, right now they've won 7 straight. Boston's lost 3 straight. The Bucks are kind of hanging right there. But yeah, I do think there has been a noticeable change to the Bucks' energy and to how they're playing. And I don't know. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to get a bigger sample size. I'm excited to see some of the better teams come in and see how we fare against them. And I'm excited to see the shot in the arm that Jabari gives them. And hopefully, knock on wood here, we're not going to have any more super impactful injuries. I want to see Brogdon back. It gives us good depth. I want to see Brandon Jennings back up here. Yeah, I think some good things are coming for him. I did want to get Bart's thought on one thing. Do you think that they held on to Jason Kidd a little bit too long, or even made the hire initially? Yes. Right, no hesitation. Do you think that they brought him in because of the name recognition and the agent recognition that he has with players throughout the league? Did they look at this as almost a business decision to say, hey, we can get Jason Kidd in here. There's connections. We buy Jason Kidd, we get all those connections. Let's see if we can make that work before anything else.
Wasn't there an ownership connection though?
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
Bart certainly weigh in, but
that's their guy. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, the owners bought a team and they wanted to bring in their guy Jason Kidd. He to the Eastern Conference Finals, and so you bring this guy in and Hall of Fame player, which even 3.5 years into his tenure, that was the go-to thing in describing him as a good coach, Hall of Fame player, because he did nothing since he came over from the Nets. I don't mind that they went out and brought him in. That was a very excitable hire. I mean, Jason Kidd, one of the faces of the league for the last 20 years, was coaching now in Milwaukee. He had some connections, and the Jeff Schwartz thing and some of the different agents and how close he was with some of the teammates that you'd eventually see come in and help these guys in Milwaukee. But it wasn't working. When you started to see the personnel moves where you wondered, was it Kidd or was it Hammond? And how unsuccessful some of those were. The bad decision with Grievous Vasquez and trading for that, and Michael Carter-Williams, how that didn't work out. I mean, you started to see that it wasn't working out. Even look at a guy like Thon. So one of the big benefits of Jason Kidd, sure, you could argue, wow, he gets Kevin Garnett and some of these guys in here. Well, Vin Baker is doing a lot better job with Thon right now than Kevin Garnett did. So everything that should have been a pro for Kidd, it just kind of wasn't. I think they should have got rid of him after the end of last season. I thought he got fired one day last season when he never showed up to the press conference. And they probably should have fired him then. That was the night Jabari went down, actually, last year. I think that, yeah, the signs were clear throughout the season that it wasn't working. Now, the argument that bothered the hell out of me was, well, if you fire him, who are you going to hire him with? Anybody. I mean, anybody. Prunty's the guy, and I'm excited to see, as I think we all are, how that continues. They should have fired him sooner, but they did. They're better for it, so we just move forward from here on out.
I think if Kidd would have employed his tactic of spilling his drink on the court, he'd probably still be here today.
His best moment as a coach. And it's a good moment.
I think it's worth also pointing out they're on pace for 46 wins, which would be a pretty substantial improvement over last year. I mean, that would put them not to 50, but I mean, it would certainly, there's time for this to be a successful season. But I think, to Bart, your point earlier, it all comes down to how the postseason goes, right?
Yeah, I mean, they've got to win. See, they could lose in 7 or 6 or 7, and then next year they could. It's not like you have to win the first round this year to be able to go to the Eastern Conference Finals next year. You don't have to, but I think if you want to call 2017, 2018 a success, that is the barometer. That is the bar. That's the pole you got to leap over.
I think we have enough talent to get to a second round in the playoffs. I think that Giannis no longer being the guy on the rise, he's here. This is as close to, I think, in my opinion, the peak of Giannis that we're going to get. Yeah, he's going to develop some different things on the court, but I mean, we're getting, to me, the max out of a guy like that you can. And when you have a guy like that can single-handedly take over a game, because he has the ability to. We've seen it at times. Defensive transition, offensively, it's just like the guy. He's amazing, and so with the abilities that he has, I'm really looking at him getting us into a second round. One of the things that I wanted to look at though was, if just a quick proposition here, if the Raptors do face the Bucks in a series in the playoffs at full strength, it can be a quick one-sentence answer. What do you guys think? Can the Bucks beat the Raptors in a 7-game series with Jabari healthy, with all of our pieces healthy? Can we beat them?
I mean, anything can happen, but I would have to pick the Raptors in that series. They're better than they were last year. I think a better comparison to where the Raptors were last year and where the Bucks were last year would be the Bucks versus Washington, or maybe a slightly dysfunctional. I hate to use Cleveland because of LeBron, but I mean, I just don't think the Raptors are the team they were last year, and I just don't think the Bucks match up well with them this year. Sure, they could win, but I'd pick the Raptors.
They've only played twice. The one game we lost that was really close, DeRozan scored 52. He's not doing that every night. And the other night we got blown out. It wasn't a good game. We played 3 games in 5 days. I don't know. I think that in a 7-game series with a better defensive Bucks team, and the Bucks team, a Bucks team that's healthy with Jabari, with Brogdon, with the rotation of guys that we have in, I think it's closer this year than it was last year, to be honest.
I think if they win tomorrow, it'll make it a lot easier to say that they can. I would right now take Raptors probably in 7, but I wouldn't be. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucks won, but the Raptors are kind of like. I mean, I watch a lot of NBA, but how much Raptors do I watch? And then they're the number 1 seed, so yeah, they're better, and I think that we should be cognizant of that, and I think you guys all are. So as better as the Bucks are, the Raptors are also better, and they are a tough matchup. Right now, I would still take the Raptors, which is why I'm so intrigued by Friday's game.
They still have Vince Carter, right?
No, but they wanted to get him. They wanted him in the off season. They wanted Vince. Where is he? Sacramento right now, I think. They wanted him back, and they looked at him at the trade deadline, and now they said there's too much hoopla if Vince Carter came back. So if he was available, they wouldn't go for him. I want to see him back there. I want to, just like you want to see Jennings here. So I don't know. He would help him.
I can't believe he's still playing.
I know, and he's good. He'll have like games where he scores 20 points a night, and then you get all excited on FanDuel. Next night he has 3 points in 35 minutes. But I think he'd be fun on that Raptors team. However, it doesn't look like it's going to happen.
What was the over-under on Bart's FanDuel drop? We got 25 minutes. Did we make it?
No, I see. Sometimes I go DraftKings and sometimes I go FanDuel.
Right.
I'm actually doing pretty good with my FanDuel lineup tonight. I got Simmons going, and I have Howard, and I'm waiting on Durant a little later. So I'm feeling pretty good.
Not bad.
FanDuel's official sponsors of the Wisconsin now.
How
Well,
cool
it's
would it be
official sponsor my credit card debt.
right.
That's for sure.
Regarding the
brought to you by
Bucks,
Furion.
7 of the next 8 games are against winning teams, so we'll find a lot about them in these next games.
That's brutal. Hey, if oh my God, you're gonna have to have this out because I can't even remember his name.
I'm not editing this.
Oh God, I'm just gonna shut up now.
And
How cool would
that
it be
is
to
the
see,
brilliant commentary from Matt there.
If Brandon Jennings makes it back to the actual Bucks, can Aaron Rodgers and Ryan Braun make up so they can all go to a game together again?
Reopening
Oh,
12.
I'm sure.
That'll never happen. I wish it would, but
That's one guy like you don't want to piss off, Aaron Rodgers. Not because of any physical attributes or anything, but just how he carries himself, how smart the guy is. Like, yeah, I wouldn't want to piss that dude off.
Breaking news: Aaron Rodgers making threats.
Making moves. One of the other things I wanted to talk about in terms of the Bucks was, I mean, we talked a little bit about Prunty. Is the head coaching position going into, this next season? I covered it in the Bucks check-in article that I did for the website, but John Horst has been on record saying they don't necessarily need to make a huge coaching splash in the offseason. They want to put the person that gives them the best opportunity to give the organization success. They want to put that guy in that role. So I kind of wanted to ask you guys, what needs to happen for the Bucks in the postseason to bring Prunty back? Is it make it past the first round? Is it make it beyond that? What's the cutoff? What's the line for you guys on Prunty? What does he have to do?
I don't think anybody's expecting him to make it past the second round. I think if they make it to the second round and they finish strong, let's say they go into the playoffs a 5 or a 4 seed, they're looking good, they make through the first round convincingly, and they're competitive in the second round, I think that's good enough.
I
Finals.
think he, yeah. I think he gets an interview no matter what. I think if he makes it far in the second round, where it's like Game 7, or if he makes the Eastern Conference Finals, then he will be the leading candidate, unless they truly can find someone else. But I don't think he's guaranteed the job unless he makes the finals. I would agree with that.
I don't think he gets much of a consideration if he doesn't get out of the first round. I think he's dead man walking if he doesn't.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right.
Well, you also have to factor in it's not just like how they perform; it's also they're going to have a wealth of options. Given the fact that they have Giannis, that's going to make this a very appealing job for a lot of different potential candidates. So you're right. I think he's got to perform really well to convince ownership that he is the guy, because they're going to have a lot of very qualified alternatives.
As appealing as some of the talent on this roster is, and the new stadium and the state-of-the-art complex, all the stuff that the ownership is doing, ownership is to credit for a lot of things here in Milwaukee with the Bucks. But they also have rustled a lot of feathers with how they've handled things. I think that the job is desirable, but I forget who reported it. Someone is saying they talked to some, it might have been Gary Wolf or something like that, that he talked to some Eastern Conference officials or whatever, however he says it. He's always pretty vague with that one. But anyway, he said that some people had some real concerns about considering Milwaukee based on how ownership has handled some things in the past. They feel that it's not enough of a hands-off approach where a high marquee type of coach can come in here and just do his job. And so there is worry around the league that is an issue. And to be fair, I think that's a legitimate point. As a high roller, in terms of a coach, they're not going to want to put up with that stuff. They're going to say, hey, look at my resume. This is what I got. you got to be hands off. You got to let me do what I need to do. GM's got to give me the support I need. So I don't know. I want to say that it's the most attractive job with Giannis being here. I want to say that we get, the right guy. I don't care about the name. I really don't. Obviously, you look at the thing that happened with Jason Kidd. The name doesn't matter. I mean, there's been plenty of successful NBA players that have just flopped in terms of a coaching role. So I don't care about the name, but yeah, I'm excited to see what's going to happen. But ownership, when are they going to learn how to handle some of these things?
It wasn't after Larry Drew. It wasn't after the whole GM fiasco, and it wasn't after Jason Kidd. So I don't know.
Right. I mean, that's 3 strikes. Those are 3 major moves that they couldn't figure out how to handle. And for savvy New York, businessmen, you'd think that it would be different. And every time that one of these issues comes up, it's like, man, they're going to really start to tarnish maybe the name. And I hope that doesn't happen. I really hope that doesn't happen, because you're going to drive a star like Giannis out. You're not going to be able to attract that talent, which Milwaukee has a hard enough time doing, to be fair. So I really hope management gets it together there, because I really want to see this core group of guys go out and do the special things that I think we all kind of hope that they can do.
You're boring Bart, Brandon. He's actually retweeting our stuff in the middle of our podcast.
A 5-hour energy plug or what?
No, I got tagged, and then I went and wanted to see
that was me. Yeah.
Landmark's article, Brian, your article on the wave, and I retweeted it. And now another guy retweeted it.
Podcast.
So good. Yeah, you guys are doing a good job.
That's one of my
Thanks for the run.
soapboxes. I'm telling you, I got 2 soapboxes. People should care about the Milwaukee Wave. And my second soapbox is that Ryan Braun will not be a full-time player for the Brewers this year. Anyway, we're not on the Brewers yet, so I'm going to shut up till that happens.
If you didn't get a chance, Bart, Brian did write, excuse me, no one can talk tonight, did write an excellent Wave article. If you get a chance,
that's what he
check
retweeted.
it out. That's
I just retweeted it.
Okay.
Brandon also not listening to Bart during the show. But...
Yeah, I'm scrolling Facebook no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and I'm actually reading the article right now, so whatever you guys are talking about.
Bart and I are playing Words with Friends.
Yeah.
And now for the Twitter Talk segment.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of the Bucks, that's really kind of what I wanted to hone in on with you guys is where, and Kevin had the point of bringing up where they've been in the first half. Have they met expectations? Where are they going? Where are they standing right now? What could we see happen? And then really more about the coaching and what's going to happen. But anything else that you guys want to circle around on the Bucks? Anything that's pressing for you guys?
Me, not unless we want to not without opening up a 30-minute discussion of what all this instability does as far as Giannis, or the fact that the NBA playoffs let everybody in and it's an Oprah Winfrey show giveaway of playoff seeds.
Okay, so yeah, as much as I've gotten baited into the NBA playoffs conversation, I can't reopen that can of worms right now.
That's
oh
fair.
Man, that was an epic conversation though.
It was.
It would be good for another episode.
It would. You could make a whole thing about that topic, because yeah, Chris and I were going back and forth for quite a long time, and it was a good one.
You can move to the Brewers, and I'll shut up.
Well, yeah, let's bring Chris and Brian in here, guys. Jeff Jenkins,
Hello,
Walk
hello.
of Fame, right?
Jeff Jenkins Walk of Fame, that made my day. If I could reserve a front row seat to that, I would. I'm not sure how to do that yet. Jeff Jenkins was always one of my top Brewers favorites, so that is very exciting, considering that there's a lot of other people who would want to be in that spot. I think he's definitely a deserving candidate for it, even though he is kind of that prototypical poster child for the typical Brewers hit in a really hot streak and then go cold for like a month. But he was the face of the franchise for a while when the franchise was doing pretty rough.
I'm just glad that Brian didn't have a heart attack when he saw the news. I was really afraid that he might just pass out.
If he gets tickets, he might.
He just might yet.
And that's how sad the Brewer news has been lately. After getting off in free agency with like that one day where everything was epic, it's kind of slowed down a little bit, right?
Well, the Brewers are signing every potential like maybe starter and maybe reliever who everybody had heard of in like 2012 because they have Wade Miley and Radimus Lin and I don't even remember all the other dudes like G-Man Choi as a first baseman, and they're basically collecting all of these baseball cards that you would get when you're trying to get like the one platinum gold card of someone. It's like here's your baseball card of Matt Albers, like, which is cool because eventually you might hit on one of these guys. So it's better that than, I mean, they even brought Nick Franklin back. So one of
Oh,
these
God.
guys will make the major league roster. So we just have to figure out who it's going to be. I don't know that we can peg that right now. I saw that McAlvey had an article out today that was giving, 5 or 6 guys who might be able to make it. I think it's really too early to tell. As I had the foreshadowing of, I think that the outfield's going to stay a little bit crowded because I think that they will protect Braun. If you think about the fact that he's probably going to get at least 1 or 2 days off a week, they can easily get at bats for Santana and Kane and Yelich and some of those other guys, especially considering that you've got some other coverage in the infield. You've got Perez who can play the middle positions. If they need to put Aguilar at third base, they could. That probably isn't the decision they want to make, but they could get away with it if they had to. So I think that they're going to use that mantra of depth being the key. So I don't know that they're going to go ahead and get rid of depth if they don't have to.
Do you think they'll keep do you think they'll keep the outfield crowded until they figure out if Thames is, the disaster he was in the second half, or if he's something in between the first half and the second half? Like, to me, the wild card is Eric Thames. If he doesn't have to be what he was in April, that's unrealistic. But he can't be what he was in the second half of the season, where he was just a disaster for like 3/4 of the second half of the season. He's got to be somewhere in between there. And if he's not, I don't even know if he's a platoonable first baseman.
Well, I guess I'll jump in on that. I tend to agree. I think if where he finished the season is just not something that we can put up with. And I don't know that Aguilar is necessarily the answer, but with Aguilar and you've got Braun who might play a little bit of first base, and we kind of know what to expect from him offensively, for better or worse. Yeah, I agree. I think that plays a role in it, but I mean, the outfield is just kind of scary crowded, and it just there's some guys out there that you really don't want to see not playing every day. So I think that's a big question for me, and it's a nice problem to have, right? I mean, there's been times in the very recent past where we didn't know who the heck was going to play because we didn't know who we wanted to play, right? We'd rather take the bat boy and stick him out there than some of the guys that we've rolled out. But yeah, I think that's one of the big questions is what's going to happen and who's going to get the playing time. Because I think, Yelich has to be playing all the time, and you would figure Kane's got to play the majority of the time. What do you do with Domingo Santana? You got to play him a majority of the time, right? I don't know, a lot of questions there in that outfield.
It certainly seems like they're not going to make a move at this point, another move with the outfield. So you try to do the math. Yeah, Yelich, right? I mean, you got to play. You gave a big haul for him. You got to play him a bunch, not to do a John Madden laugh there. But you got to play him a bunch. You got to play Kane a bunch. So part of the depth is protecting yourself against injury. Part of it, too, is there are still holes on the team, as you guys were talking about with even if you look at the rotation itself, we think Chase will do the same thing. We hope Davies will have a little bit better of a year. And then now we're all of a sudden at our third spot, and it's Chacin, which I still think is a question mark. And then is it going to be Woodruff or Suter or Guerra or Gallardo? And there's just a lot of things that I think need to hit. And outside of that one day where this offseason just went up to 11, the Brewers offseason has mainly just been flyers and getting guys and seeing what's going to happen. So I don't think I think they'll do as well as they did last year. The 86 wins, I think 87, 88. But I think I wouldn't overestimate the Brewers at this point. Don't be giving them 95 wins, but also don't underestimate the Cubs. You should be giving them 95 wins. The Brewers are a better team than they were a year ago, but so are the Cubs. And I think the Brewers still need a couple more things to happen, especially at the pitching rotation, before they're at that level.
Are the Cubs really better? Like, seriously, are they? I mean, okay, they added Darvish, but essentially they replaced Arrieta with a slight upgrade.
Yeah,
and
but
Lester's a year older, and he wasn't even worth one win last year.
that team, that whole first half, that team was not that team. So whether it was a World Series hangover or whatever, the Cubs of 2016 is the team I think we're going to see in 2018. 2017, it took them a while to get going, 5.5 back of the crew before they turned it on. We saw how good they could be in July of last year. I think that's what you're going to see from them out of the gate. So I still am intimidated and fearful of just how dominant that team could be this season and the next couple seasons.
Do you
I
think
agree they're really talented. I'm just not sold on their rotation. You know, again, I think Lester's nearing the end. Darvish is a slight upgrade over Arrieta. They've got question marks in the 5 hole. You know,
Chatwood could be hit or miss, but I think he's a good 5. And Kyle Hendricks, always ignored, always underappreciated, and I think he's very good. So
is Zach Davies his clone, or is he Zach Davies' clone? Because they're like the same pitcher.
I wish Zach Davies was as good as Hendricks.
He will be.
I would say I think that the Cubs offensively probably still have a little bit on this Brewers team. So that's one thing that the Brewers have done to close that gap a little bit. So it's really going to be about seeing how these guys progress. Can you get another really good season out of Domingo Santana? Can you get another really good season out of Travis Shaw? Can Orlando Arcia maintain that stride that he made in being able to keep a higher batting average? Because if those things persist, then you have a conversation. But at this point, there's a lot of things that you don't know. They're really putting a lot of their eggs in the Jonathan VR basket. They're putting a lot of those eggs back in the Manny Pena basket, things like that. So those are all relative unknowns. So it's one of those things where it's a wait and see. And if everything turns out, great. And if it doesn't, that also might mean that they've got some flexibility come the trade deadline and things like that. Because if someone does really come through and they do a good job, that person could be someone that they could trade. If that person doesn't perform to expectations, they could go and add a piece in that area. There are still some pieces in the minor league system too that could come up and contribute this year. So that's something to keep in mind, because really the pieces that they traded were going to be pieces that are outfield pieces other than Isan Diaz, but they've also got some other folks in the middle who they could still count on to come up in the next year and a half-ish or so, I think. So there's definitely a lot of what ifs still there.
I think the what if is a conversation we're probably going to have with the Brewers pretty much every year, right? Because they're not going to go out and sign a whole ton of guys who are more of those surefire type of things, right? So, I mean, we've got a bunch of our pitchers. I think they performed well beyond what we expected last year. And then the question is, are we going to see that same Chase Anderson? Are we going to see Zach Davies in some of the things that he's flashed here and there? And same thing with some of the hitters. Is Santana going to be who he was last year? And I think that with a team in a small market and who doesn't go crazy with the payroll, that's just kind of what we're going to have to deal with every year. And I think my thoughts are that when they came into the offseason, it was we performed well last year. We have to build off of what we hope that we have, and then those few things that we feel confident that we have, add a few pieces and see where it takes us. And I think overall it's not a bad place to be, but I agree with Bart. I think that the Cubs are just going to be monsters this year. And is it possible that we could outplay them and win the division? Sure, it's possible, but I think more than likely we're playing to try to get a wild card.
Brewers stay within striking distance till about June or July. Jimmy Nelson comes back fully recovered, pitches them to the pennant. There we go.
I mean, Nelson and Woodruff are the wild cards in the rotation, in my view. Like, depending on how he comes back from his injury, he was pitching. I think it gets kind of lost in the shuffle. Is that Nelson was pitching like an emerging true ace.
Oh, that
But the
sucked when he
injury
got hurt.
the injury he is coming back from is incredibly difficult to come back from a pitcher. And yes, it's not as severe as some of the other cases in recent years. And yes, medicine's come a long way, but that's an injury that's ended people's careers more often than I would feel comfortable with. So, hopefully he comes back. All the reports seem to be saying that he's progressing well. But who knows how strong he'll be when he comes back. I agree with you guys. I think the Cubs are the favorite. There's no doubt about that. I just don't think they're a 100-win team favorite. I think they're 93, 94 wins, and depending on how this Brewers team shakes out, I think the Brewers, to your point, Kevin, I think they stay in striking distance. They're probably realistically playing for a wild card, but the Cubs don't scare me in the way that they did in 2016. They're still the division favorites and probably favorites to make it to the league championship series again.
Do you guys think there is any pitcher out there that closes that gap significantly?
I don't know if they're going to spend the money on Arrieta, but Cobb is an upgrade in the staff, and Lynn, those guys are upgrades to the staff, but I don't know. You'd need a combo. Like if they, by some grace of God, went and signed Jake Arrieta to a 1-year deal for $20 million and then traded for Chris Archer, okay, then I think you can win the Central. But I think it's got to be that drastic. If you even add Cobb / Lynn, I don't think that's enough to win the division. I just don't.
Yeah, I probably agree with you. I think Archer is interesting, but the thing I worry about is they'd have to give up so much major league ready talent that, yes, they'd get better in the rotation, but the lineup would be hurt so much that you'd be slightly better, but not substantially better than you were before the trade.
Yeah, and I think that if Domingo Santana, if other teams viewed him how we view him, I think he would have been traded by now.
Yep,
Yeah,
I
I would
agree
agree
with
with that. Now, did anybody ever figure out what's going on with that Jake Odorizzi deal where they got like a 1-for-1? The Twins did. I was like, that seems like a very weird return for them.
No, that was very weird. I don't know what the Rays are doing, and they just decided, the Marlins. You saw that thing coming from miles away, but the Rays just Saturday night last weekend were just like, you know what? Let's just tank. Let's just sell off some guys and DFA some guys, and Carlos Gomez, we'll sign him. Oh, sure, let's do that.
That's like when somebody gets drunk on a Saturday night, logs onto their
much.
fantasy basketball site and goes, I'm going to trade you and you and you, and I'm going to cut you, and I'm going to put a $50 fab bid in on Joe Ingles.
So like what the Cavs did at the break?
Well, I was going to say what
Exactly
Derek Jeter
what
did
the
when he
Cavs
started,
did at the
but
break.
Yeah, either one, yeah.
Pretty much is what we're rooting for as a wild card at this point.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how the season starts, that NL Central dream, I think you can hope for until it's out of reach. But I think wild card's the target.
Do the Cardinals scare you guys?
For some reason, they don't. Why is that? I don't know. They don't.
They always should.
They're always scary.
They are always scary. They eat babies. It's kind of the Cardinal way.
I agree. In the back of, and I know I'm not huge into the Brewers segment here, but yeah, they're always scary for me. They're always in the back of my mind somewhere that they're gonna kill the Brewers, or I don't know. I hate seeing the Cardinals come to town. I hate when the Brewers play the Cardinals. I don't like anything about them, and I'm more scared of them on a consistent basis more than I am of pretty much anyone else.
The thing that bothers me about the Cardinals, like the Cubs, I think we all expect them to win the division. So if they do, it won't be, it's not going to be heartbreaking if the Brewers finish with 88 wins and the Cubs win the division at 90, 96 or something. But what it feels like the Cardinals would do is just out of nowhere win 10 of their last 12 games, get 89 wins, and knock the Brewers out of a wild card spot. That's what I expect from the Cardinals. And that's why they're scary, is they just they come out of nowhere in the second half of the season and break your dreams.
And then win the World Series on top of it.
Shut up, Kevin. Still not over that. Maybe we can sign Mark Kotze.
Oh boy.
Put him
At least
in
he's
center
got
field.
great at bat music.
let's circle back on one other thing. At the front of the podcast, none of you guys heard it, but what I played was, I guess I'll do this in a Morgan Freeman voice so you guys understand what I did.
What?
When I was a boy, I was a freak on the court and on
Wow.
the sheets. That's what I played.
Okay.
So I meant to do this last week. We were going to do this podcast last week, and it was more time fitting last week. We were going to talk about if there was going to be any blowback over that. I'm glad there wasn't. It didn't make sense that there should have been. How did you guys feel about that? I thought it was just something different from him.
Well, he's in the doghouse. I heard him say that with his girlfriend.
She was telling him to stop.
Yeah, she was warning him. He had a fair chance.
I got to know where to find that bell. I think is the big thing coming out of that.
Have you been to Spencer's lately? I'm sure it's in there somewhere.
Spencer's? You have a time machine?
What mall? Southridge. They got one over at Southridge, don't they still?
Oh yeah, they would. I guess you're right.
Time machine. I guess maybe. Are you thinking a Hot Topic? That would be time machine for me. Spencer's. I don't know. Every once in a while, you cruise through there.
Is that next to the KB Toys?
They're KB Toys. That's been gone for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah. KB Toys always had, at least the one when I grew up in Fond du Lac, every time I would go to KB Toys, there was always a display outside of KB Toys. And it was like probably chest high. And it was these 3 little rotating, barking little dogs. You guys know what I'm talking about? And they would just, they'd like shake and go, "Rick, Rick, Rick,
They
Rick,
had them in a
Rick, Rick."
circular.
Yeah.
And they just went back and forth. Oh my God.
They like never died. They would
Thanks
just
for
always
bringing
go.
that up.
"Rip, rip, rip." That's KB Toys to me.
We kind of went from a bell that says ring for a blowjob to KB Toys. I don't know if I'm disturbed by this or.
Bart,
I'm a little
if there are
sad, is
some
what I am.
suppressed memories that you want to talk about after this, I'm free.
Yep.
Yeah, so
You know,
Spencer's
Bart's,
KB Toys,
nightmares
that's
now.
right next to Sam Goody.
Yep. And Walden Books.
Exactly.
Brandon has nightmares about the Cardinals. Bart has nightmares about toy dogs.
Yeah, man.
Is that why you're such a big proponent of the Hank conspiracy?
Well, no, I'm a proponent because Hank's dead like 3 times over.
I know this because they don't trot him out there anymore. I am too on the bandwagon.
There's no sugarcoating here on Wisconsin sports fans. That dog is dead.
That dog is dead.
He's gone.
That's going to be our
I
next
wonder
article.
what they did with him.
Yeah.
You think they buried him? Or you
Under the mound.
Wisconsin sports fans is bringing you a 30 for 30, Hank.
Or do you think like they spread his ashes
In the
dirt?
rosin bag.
Like
Yeah.
everybody got some. Like Giovanni Gallardo got some. Ed Cedar got some. Like,
Giovanni's
Rosenbach
back.
got some. That's true. Good call.
I don't know, guys. Hank the dog might still be alive. They don't tell me that much. I'm just a third base coach.
So that's our outro, right?
I think so.
We gotta get a montage of impressions that we've done throughout the podcast.
Kevin's Morgan Freeman's there, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Morgan Freeman. We got Ed Cedar. We got the Bart Winkler. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everybody.
Yeah, we'll have a full montage soon. It'll be like the Jeff Janis drop.
Yeah.
Podcast.
I like it.
All right, guys. Is there anything else that we wanted to talk about? Anything else that we want to cover?
We got
we
KB
got
Toys, we
Spencer,
covered the Bell, we covered the
KB
Brewers.
Toys, yeah, Sam Goody.
I was going to rant about the wave, but I just wrote an article about it. So just go read the article. Watch the game on MASL TV tomorrow. They got to beat the Baltimore Blast to get their home field advantage for the conference championship round. It's a good team this year. Get invested. Come on. Help a brother out. We're talking about McGuanago basketball. Let's talk about a local sports team. You wanted me to be passionate, so I'm being passionate.
That
Come
is
on.
passion. Unchained right
Do
there.
it.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us tonight. Special thanks to Bart. Good having you back, Matt, and good having you back, Brandon, as well as Chris, Brian. This is the Wisconsin Sports Fans. You can follow us on Twitter at Wisconsin Sports Fans. You can like our Facebook site and our website, wisportsfans.com. You guys have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.